Welcome to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Davis. Today it's all things Royal Rumble as we are on the way to the WrestleMania season. We're covering the biggest rumors regarding the WWE and what's to come these next few months, along with predictions on the Royal Rumble matches. Who's going to WrestleMania? It might be myself and Ryan Frick of Tapouts and Touchdowns. Find out today on the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. What's up, everybody? It's Michael Davis, the host of the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. And there's times when I do this podcast by myself, solo, just talking to myself and my camera and record it and call it a podcast. Well, today I actually get to have a conversation with one of my good friends, one of the friends of Tobacco Road Sports Radio, Mr. Ryan Frick of Tapouts and Touchdowns, that you can see on the Wrestling Wednesday lineup, along with the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. Ryan, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's your guy Bully Rye here again, man. I'm excited about the conversation we're gonna have today. We're so close to the Royal Rumble, I can taste it, and the Royal Rumble is just that prelude, that appetizer, if you will, to WrestleMania season. So I'm super excited to talk about it today.
And there's always this lull in wrestling. It usually comes from Survivor Series up until the Royal Rumble. And then it booms because now you finally put away the rumors. You get to see how WrestleMania is shaping up. Who knows about Vince McMahon? We're not going to talk too much about that because I just get so disappointed when I talk about how Vince could mess all this up. But the biggest rumor we've heard for maybe 2 years now is the potential of a matchup at WrestleMania between Roman Reigns versus his cousin, The Rock. And question is, does this happen? Who's to say? But Ryan, I'm going to ask you, do you think that the Royal Rumble is where this could really set up for a WrestleMania match? Does The Rock even wrestle at the Royal Rumble in the 30-man match?
We very possibly could. It's funny that I just rewatched the 1994 Royal Rumble, in which case Bret Hart and Lex Luger both went over the top rope and hit the ground at the same time, and they were declared co-winners. And if you recall that WrestleMania that year, Lex Luger would face Yokozuna for the world title early in the show, and then Bret Hart would come back and face him later in the show. It was also the same WrestleMania that Owen Hart beat Bret Hart. But I digress. I think this is a good opportunity here. There's been rumors that they've wanted to break the titles back up by brand. I feel like this would be a really good opportunity to do it if you've got someone like Cody Rhodes, who has been has had his video vignettes, and they finally revealed the worst kept secret. He will be returning at the Royal Rumble. It'd be an interesting scene to see Cody Rhodes and The Rock go over at the same time, and then you get to see Cody challenge for the WWE World title and The Rock challenge for the Universal title. So you get both of those matches at WrestleMania. So, it's possible, but they've also been talking about The Rock versus Roman Reigns seemingly forever. Even pre-COVID, everybody talked about it because it's a dream match. You got Rock and Austin on countless WrestleManias. You got Rock Hogan. You had Rock Cena for the 2-match send-off. So I've been saying for months that it was going to be Cody and Roman, and Cody was going to be the one to knock off Roman and win the title. And I'm going to stick by it. I think there's a possibility, as there always is with The Rock showing up. But I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. And as a huge Rock fan, that was the guy I remember. Well, I don't remember so much, maybe like bits here and there, but my parents would be like, you'd run into the living room at 2-3 years old, run in terms of like how much a toddler can run actually. And it's like, whenever The Rock was on, my brother actually broke his foot because he was running into the living room and tripped over a snow boot when The Rock came on.
Man.
But I said watching The Rock.
Yeah, listen, I grew up a Stone Cold guy. One of my best friends growing up was a Rock guy, and I was a Stone Cold guy. So it made for a fun experience there. But yeah, listen, The Rock is a dream match for a lot of guys, right? And when you talk about the head of the table and the Samoan dynasty and the family, The Rock is obviously in there. So yeah, I'm still sticking to my idea that The Rock will come back for one more match and end his career at Survivor Series, where he debuted so many years ago. But, I've been wrong before.
Hey, The Undertaker debuted at Survivor Series,
Mm-hmm.
retired at Survivor Series, so at least you have some predecessor for that prediction.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned Cody Rhodes, and I wanted to get your opinion on this because I'm actually pretty upset how they did it. Okay, because this is a perfect opportunity. Cody tears, his pectoral muscle. It's perfect opportunity when the clock hits 0. Whether you do them at 1, whether you do them at 30, whether you do them at a weird like 27, 28, boom, Kingdom plays, Cody Rhodes comes out. It's a return. It's a big pop. The Royal Rumble is meant for those pop surprise returns. And they kind of blew it by saying, yeah, Cody Rhodes is coming back to wrestle. Ryan, did they miss the opportunity here?
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, listen, everybody sort of, when he said he was going to be out 9 months after he tore his pectoral muscle, we all believed, at least a lot of the people who ran in my circles believed, that he was going to be back in Money in the Bank, and he was going to win Money in the Bank, and he was going to cash it in at WrestleMania. And due to his injury, he wasn't able to do it. Obviously, Austin Theory would win the Money in the Bank. But it's kind of the dirt sheets, if you will, have come out and said that like WWE is happy for their other surprises that they already have kind of in the chamber at Royal Rumble, and so that's why they're not so upset about it. But I mean, listen, we didn't know Edge was coming at the Royal Rumble back in 2020. That was a surprise. There was no sort of conclusion that you could draw that Edge would have been back. And the same thing for Christian the following year. So um it's one of those things that, like, yeah, it would have been fun if we hear his music hit and all of a sudden he comes out. But most of us already had the idea that he was coming back at the Royal Rumble anyway. So why not just build him up with vignettes and build him to be this massive baby face that he's done all this work to get back to the ring, and it's going to culminate at the Royal Rumble. This isn't a situation like even John Cena years ago when he was way ahead of schedule with rehab, and there's another one of those guys that nobody ever anticipated coming back in the Royal Rumble that he did return to. So this is a different situation because we all could draw the conclusion and see the writing on the wall that regardless of whether or not WWE announced it, Cody was going to be back in the Rumble, and so I don't consider it a missed opportunity here.
I really remember those moments, like John Cena sitting there and he comes back. I remember Edge right before the pandemic. There was a full crowd there, and there was like always like these little things like Edge may be cleared, Edge may return, but you're like, nah, he's out. WWE hasn't announced it. Edge hasn't come back and said I'm here in the Royal Rumble, and I really wish we could have had that jaw-dropping moment. Cody's back, and let's get the show on the road. But I'm thinking of a benefit maybe is like, are they trying to get more eyes on the product? Do they already see as Cody Rhodes as that draw?
I don't know if they consider him that draw, but when you've got everybody focusing on Cody making the return and coming back in the Royal Rumble, it definitely distracts you from who may be coming back, i.e. The Rock. Like, there's no foregone conclusion that The Rock comes back at the Royal Rumble and enters the match. There's no foregone conclusion that The Rock will wrestle Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. So everybody's now got their mind and their attention focused on Cody Rhodes, and that is maybe serves as a good distraction for the people who do make returns in the Royal Rumble that get those surprise return pops that we're all accustomed to.
And we didn't even throw this name out there. I just want to see your reaction. CM Punk.
Nah, it's never going to happen. Listen, they try to say that CM Punk would, eventually will, there's that old saying that they all come back. We had Scott Steiner allow himself to be inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame because his brother wouldn't have gotten inducted without him. We obviously saw the Ultimate Warrior famously come back for one last hoorah before his passing. There's a lot of guys, even Jeff Jarrett is a prime example of somebody that they let come back. Goldberg. I mean, the list can go on and on. I think if there's one guy that doesn't come back to WWE, it's going to be CM Punk. I mean, first of all, I believe he's still under contract with AEW. And secondly, I think his rift was never necessarily with Vince McMahon. It was more with Triple H, and he's still ahead of, in charge of creative. And so, and even if his rift was with Vince McMahon, now Vince McMahon is back in the mix. So we don't know, they can tell us, all day, every day that Triple H is in control of creative. He can go to the locker rooms and say that I'm still going to be in charge of creative. But it's almost like who are you trying to convince, yourself or the talent? Because none of us know as Vince McMahon is back in the company. So yeah, it might be fun for the fans that still root for CM Punk. I can assure you that if CM Punk's music hits, I'll be getting up from my couch and walking away. I don't need to see him come back into WWE ever again. He never needs to step foot in a wrestling ring, in an octagon, on a television screen. CM Punk can ride it into the sunset that was the media scrum in AEW, and we never have to see him again, in my opinion. And that's granted. Listen, no offense to your show or my show, I'm not sure the likelihood that CM Punk will ever listen to this podcast or see this podcast.
Of course he would.
And if and when he does, I'm sure he's going to have some smart things to say to me. And I'm here to tell him that he can be worth, more than 4 of my houses put together and 6 times the debt that I've accrued over my lifetime. And it's still not going to change my mind. And he can say what he wants and do what he wants, but my opinion will never change. The word punk best describes Phil Brooks, and I'll just leave it at that.
Well, and he probably messed it up for him with the brawl out at All Out.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. I like the phrasing there. Yeah. Again, when everybody sort of felt like, there's a combination of whether he quit on WWE or WWE kind of screwed him over. You had that part of the population that, was divided, and he came out and said, I don't care what the fans think about me. I'm going to do what I want to do for me. And then he goes to AEW, and that fan base that still enjoyed him, of course they loved him coming back. And then the media scrum happens, and Tony Khan let that conversation go way too long. And so everybody got to see where CM Punk would go into business for himself. And, the rumors that he was a locker room cancer there. And even when he called out somebody as Kofi on AEW television, I think Kofi Kingston went on the podcast and said something along the lines of like, I don't know what he's talking about. We don't talk anymore. So, you've got guys like FTR that'll go to bat for him. But at the same time, like, I think he's burned his last bridge in professional wrestling. Maybe he winds up in Impact in a Bound for Glory, wrestling in front of the 50 fans that they have every night where he belongs.
Wasn't you a couple weeks ago on Out of Pocket who was like, maybe Triple H takes over Impact Wrestling?
Yeah. I said it. I said, listen, if Vince comes over and takes over, Stephanie's already out. Like, she's already resigned. She's got stock in the company. There's nobody, just because you own stock in a company doesn't mean you can't go work for a competitor. I mean, I don't know what the bylaws say about owning stock in that company, but maybe Vince ousts Triple H. He owns stock in the company too. Who's to say that he and Stephanie don't go over and take over Impact, build the roster in Impact, funnel some of their WWE stock, sell some of it off, and put it invest in Impact Wrestling, and take them back on the road and get some more fans looking at that product. Because listen, you've got wrestling 5 days a week on TV now. You've got Raw on Mondays, NXT Tuesdays, AEW Wednesdays. You get Impact and New Japan on Thursdays, and then you get WWE and AEW both on Fridays. So who's to say that somebody like Triple H can't take over essentially from the bottom company like what Impact is now, and make them a viable competitor? I mean, you once had WCW, WWF at the time, and ECW. Who's to say you can't have an AEW, a TNA, and a WWE all working for the same goal? So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see. Nevertheless, you never know.
And so to add on to 2 of your predictions, or hey, what if this happens? Triple H and Stephanie go get Impact and then bring in CM Punk. I think your mind would explode.
Yeah. I may wind up in a hospital from an aneurysm or a stroke, one or the other, if I were to see Vince take over Impact and CM Punk show up at Impact Wrestling. That would be pretty unique.
Hey, anything can happen in wrestling.
What does Sting always say? Never say never, or I can't think of what he says, but the wrestling business, Triple or the Undertaker in his Hall of Fame speech said, "Never say never."
Never
Uh,
say never.
the only thing that's sure about Sting is that nothing's for sure, and that goes with the wrestling business as well.
Hey, as much as people knock on the business for being scripted, you couldn't even script that. I mean, come on.
I mean, it's one of those things like nobody saw Bully Ray going back to Impact Wrestling like he is now. Like nobody saw Mickey James. Like we all thought Mickey James, again, if nobody's been following Impact Wrestling, she was on this sort of that Ric Flair thing, that Ric Flair tour that if you lose a match, you retire. And Mickey said, I'm either going to lose a match and retire or I'm going to win the Impact Knockouts Championship. And so it's sort of one of those things that maybe it's time that Mickey James does ride into the sunset. Nope. She wins the Impact Knockouts Championship and her career continues in Impact. So, I mean, listen, if you want to get paid okay money and go wrestle in front of 50 people and a couple times a night, I'll go wrestle for Impact. So give me a contract. I'll go take some bumps here and there and be enhancement talent. Just teach me how to take a better back bump. So I'll do it. But people that are ultra famous like Bubba Ray Dudley and Mickey James, go do it. Matter of fact, Ernest the Cat Miller debuted on Impact Wrestling this week. I don't know if you remember Ernest Miller. But he came out with the red shoes, doing the I can't even say oh my gosh, I can't say his name. The dance that the old singer used to do, and of course I can't say his name. But doing the little red shoes dance and stuff. Santino Marella came to Impact Wrestling as the director of whatever. Well, he's got a little badge on him. I'm surprised he's able to use that name. I thought that was a WWE trademark name, and so the fact that he's going as Santino Marella in Impact is pretty interesting to me. But again, you go get your money, bud. Like go cash those checks to go work at Impact in front of 50 to 75 people a night. They could put on some decent programming if they had the crowd that would give it the effect that even Ring of Honor had at one time. So
oh man,
who knows?
If they could build that following in Impact and get something going more consistent, I still think they need either put your stuff out on YouTube or get yourself like a TV streaming deal, like something better than just Access TV, which half the people I know don't even have. I don't.
That's the problem. They put ECW on TNN Friday nights at 10 o'clock. They never had ad time. Like you never saw on a country music station, you never saw an ad for ECW. They never got promoted. And Paul Heyman infamously went on that rant about you never promoted us. So now we're gonna, screw the network. And they made, the network, I think it was Don Callis that was the network exec for ECW. So like again, I mean, even New Japan's on Access TV that comes on after Impact. So the problem is that you can get a TV deal. I think the Live Tour for golf just got a TV deal with the CW. I don't know how much. I mean, first of all, they don't need the money from a TV deal; they just need the visibility. Yeah. But with Impact, you need the visibility, and you need visibility on a station that's better than Access TV. That most people think that when they see AXS, they think it's some sort of ATV, channel. Like let's watch dirt bikes over on Access TV this weekend. But yeah, it's unfortunate because Impact they were building into being a real player in the wrestling business, and Dixie Carter took it over and completely tanked it. Dixie Carter is the Vince Russo of TNA Impact Wrestling, and that's why they are the way they are now.
Maybe a hot take though. I put more of the blame on Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff when they came in.
I'll listen. I'll give the blame to Hogan. I won't give the blame to Bischoff. Bischoff has gone on record as saying that when they Impact Wrestling wanted him, that he refused to make any decisions for the company. He was just coming as on-air talent, and they would try to bring him into meetings. He said, "No, dude, no. I'm here because Hogan asked me to be here, but I'm not making decisions for this company." So again, and that was Dixie Carter's decision, was to bring in Hogan and Bischoff. And if you recall, the Nasty Boys had a short stint in that era of TNA. Let's put Impact on Mondays. And within 3 weeks, they said, "Oh, we're going back to Wednesday." Sorry, folks. That right there killed any momentum that TNA could have had, was moving it to Monday nights to try to compete with Raw. and then giving up in less than a month. So, like, yeah, nobody's turning on Impact Wrestling to see a 65-year-old Hulk Hogan. Bischoff, had he been making decisions, probably could have put out a better product. But he wasn't there to make decisions. He was there to be on-air talent because he was tired of the stress that was in WWE and in WCW, and he was just there to more or less be enhancement. And when you try to go the old tried and true WCW route, let's bring in a bunch of people for the competition. It typically doesn't end well. And when you've got the Nasty Boys taking out the Dudley Boys in the locker room, like, what does that say? Like, the Dudley Boys are one of the most decorated tag teams in history. They're a lot better talented than the Nasty Boys ever were. And because Brian Knobbs is friends with Hulk Hogan, he's the one that gets to get put over. Don't get me started. I could go on for an hour-long show talking about how dumb and nasty and just untalented, enter adjective here about Brian Knobbs as I could. He's another one of those guys that, like, he and Brutus the Barber Beefcake rode the coattails of Hulk Hogan for 20 plus years. And just seeing the Nasty Boys on TNA is a prime example of how they went from being the X Division and Elix Skipper straddling the cage and hitting a Hurricane Rana off the top of the cage to the Nasty Boys fighting in a squash match on Impact Wrestling. Like, that gives you all that you need to know about why Impact struggles the way that they do now.
Yeah. And let's be honest, they are building something up, but we'll have to see what happens. We'll also have to see what happens this weekend at the Royal Rumble. When we come back after the break, we're going to talk about who might show up at the Royal Rumble. We're also going to talk about this Mountain Dew Pitch Black match, whatever that could entail, right after the break. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Davis. Make sure you're following all our social media. You're following us on YouTube, Spotify, on Facebook, on Instagram at Drop the Mic Wrestling. You can follow Ryan Frick with Tapouts and Touchdowns at Tapouts and TDs. You have an Instagram and Twitter, right?
So Twitter's at Tapouts and TDs, Facebook.com/Tapouts and Touchdowns. I'm myself on Instagram is Ryan W. Frick if you want to follow me personally on Instagram. But yeah, then you can find my podcast wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google. So you can find the podcast anywhere. But I've been a lot more active on social media, my Facebook and Twitter as of late. So at Tapouts and TDs on Twitter, Facebook.com/Tapouts and Touchdowns. Make sure you go like and follow. We've also got a YouTube channel. Search Tapouts and Touchdowns on YouTube and give me a subscription because I want to be able to make like a YouTube.com with a URL. And I can't do that until I get to 100 subscribers. You and I talked about it. We exchanged follows last week. So that's basically where you can find me anywhere you want to go.
So listeners, you just heard it from not just my mouth, but also the mouth of Ryan Frick, Bully Rye, as everyone knows him. You help us out. You subscribe to our YouTube channels. We get better content out for you on our social media, on our YouTube. And let's talk about this Royal Rumble. We started talking maybe about some returns that could happen, but this is Bray Wyatt's return in the ring. He returned at Extreme Rules, which was what, September, October timeframe?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
It's been a while, and they built him up just with promos, doing promos with LA Knight, and I feel like that's a way to get Bray Wyatt accustomed, doing some live shows, getting back in the ring that way, getting back into shape, but now he finally has a match against LA Knight, a Mountain Dew Pitch Black match. We've never seen this before. I'm expecting a dark room street fight, a better way to put it, but it's really for marketing, right?
Of course it's for marketing. When you call your match the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match, man, I mean, you talk about selling out. Ka-ching, ka-ching. Go get you that Mountain Dew money, WWE, because good night, dude. Like, listen, you mentioned it's his first match back since returning. WWE has tried some gimmicks before, and before them, it was WCW having a Judy Bagwell on a pole match. It's WWE's tried some things. I've already forgot what they called it. The NXT. It was the NXT gimmick match that they had a couple of premium live events ago, where it was like the scramble, like where you had like two people enter the ring, then one person enters, and then whoever, when you get pinned or submitted, you go into a penalty box. It was this whole thing. So WWE, let's be honest, they try. They throw darts at a dartboard, and sometimes they stick. Elimination Chamber still around. Hell in a Cell still around. But Pitch Black, the Mountain Dew Pitch Black match, I'm not sure if they can replicate this. Maybe it's their answer to the Undertaker Mankind Boiler Room Brawl from the late 90s.
That's what I thought. That's what this reminds me of.
And it could be one of those cinematic matches too. Like we saw both Undertaker and Bray Wyatt have cinematic matches at WrestleMania during the pandemic. This could be one of those cinematic matches where like they meet on the Wyatt compound that has been rebuilt, because Bray Wyatt has teased like going back to that phase of his life where he says "run" on TV, and all of a sudden it kind of goes to the Wyatt family like vignette as he goes off camera. You're obviously seeing a lot of Uncle Howdy, not just interacting with Wyatt, but now interacting with Alexa Bliss. So I'm curious to see what their build. I'd love to see this build into a reveal of Uncle Howdy at WrestleMania. And I genuinely want to see Uncle Howdy. I don't want Uncle Howdy to be Bo Dallas, because they are brothers, and it would not make sense to call Bo Dallas, whatever, Uncle Howdy being his brother. I want Uncle Howdy to be Mike Rotunda, to be IRS himself, so that eventually he can bring in Bo Dallas. And now they've got a family of three. Even if Rotunda is just like a non-talking role, then he's allowed to bring his family together. Now you've got an actual Wyatt family with Bo Dallas, with Bray Wyatt, with now you've got Alexa Bliss as maybe the Sister Abigail reincarnation that we all thought we were going to get years ago, instead of a cross-dressing Bray Wyatt that couldn't do it because of the flu. Like I think, again, talk about wish list. You talk about stuff that makes sense. We just had on my show, I just had a fantasy WrestleMania booking last week. And so when you talk about fantasy booking, that's what I'd like to see. What I'm terrified to see is this dark black match, because the last thing we want is a black screen, hearing like lead pipes and chairs and stuff fall over the place. Like, oh, what's going on? It's going to make people, people in the arena are going to go out. That's going to be their pee break. That's going to be their drink break. Like, hey, you want to get some popcorn? You want a hot dog? Like, this is the time to do it, because we love Bray Wyatt and we want to see what happens. But 2 minutes on a dark screen with nothing else going on, people are going to lose interest like they did. Even in the Boiler Room Brawl, there were boos out of the crowd because they couldn't see the screens. If you go back and watch that match, and I forgot what pay-per-view it was, but the only way that the people in the arena could see it were these 4 small TVs around each side of the ring. And so, like, what are you supposed to do? So I have very low expectations for this match. I'm glad we're going to get to see Bray Wyatt potentially squash LA Knight, not because I want to see LA Knight squash, because I think he's a great wrestler. I think he's a great performer. But yeah, this match I do not have high expectations for it.
It'd be funny though. You're like, I'm excited to see this. We might not see it if it's pitch black. And just thinking of I hate Mountain Dew to begin with, but
it's the worst soda you can drink.
It is so gross. You ever been in those dentist offices and they have the poster that says Mountain Dew mouth?
Listen, as a kid who drank like 4 Mountain Dews a day in high school, I was a big Mountain Dew guy. I drank Mountain Dew Live Wire. I didn't drink the Code Red. I feel like we're promoting Mountain Dew, the Baja Blast. That's one of my favorite sodas. But the problem is the Mountain Dew is the absolute worst soda you can drink. Like, it is the worst soda for your health that you can have. So I want to know, you've had the Brood Blood baths. You've had the slime baths from DX. They even dropped, feces from an arena once. So I want to see if this goes pitch black, and when the lights come up, you can now get a Mountain Dew bath in the middle of the ring, and it's Mountain Dew pitch black that just goes all over LA Knight. And
he would lose his mind.
Well, it's not just he would lose his mind, but like, think about this. Sodas are sticky. If you have ever spilled soda on yourself, you got to wash them hands. You got to, if it gets on you anywhere, it gets real sticky. So imagine LA Knight, like his hand, like sticking to the mat. He tried to crawl out after a Mountain Dew pitch black bath. Oh man, the possibilities are endless with this total dumpster fire that I expect to be a match.
And their creativity could honestly protect both of them, especially with Bray. Bray's not quite ready for in-ring action, but we'll have to see. And you mentioned Alexa Bliss. She's facing Bianca Belair. I don't necessarily see them taking the title off Bianca Belair. I'm expecting Bianca to take this into WrestleMania season, but I'm curious to see if there's like a correlation between Alexa and Bray during this match, and if they like put it side by side to the Bray LA Knight match, or if it's later on in the show.
They're gonna split it up. They're gonna split it up. They have to, because Uncle Howdy will be involved in both matches. Uncle Howdy will probably cost Alexa Bliss the match. Bianca Belair is going to run into WrestleMania, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I kind of have an idea of who she's going to be facing at WrestleMania. But it's Uncle Howdy will be involved. More than likely, will cost Bliss the match, and it'll be interesting to see again where they take that story into WrestleMania, because I feel like we're going to get a payoff at WrestleMania. I just don't know what that payoff is going to be.
Well, whether they reveal Uncle Howdy now, whether they reveal him in a couple months, maybe there's other characters you have to reveal. Bray Wyatt, obviously, when he returned, all his puppets were out in the crowd. Some were like, ooh, that's Grayson Waller. Some were like, ooh, is that Cameron Grimes or Joe Gacy? That's going to be interesting. But
Cameron Grimes would go perfect in a new Wyatt family.
He could. Were you
incredible.
the one who like brought that up a couple weeks ago?
It wasn't me, but whoever it was, kudos
that.
to them, because I love the idea of Cameron Grimes being in the new Wyatt family. I mean, they talked about I say there's people that talked about why not bring back Eric Rowan. Like, obviously, unfortunately, Luke Harper can't be a part of it. But maybe they bring back Braun Strowman. WWE is heavy with factions right now, between Imperium to the Fight Club, whatever you want to call Fight Night. You got the Bloodline. You've got and then we finally saw Judgment Day approach the Bloodline this week. So there's always opportunity for more factions, because I mean, if you remember, the Attitude Era was built around factions. You have the Nation of Domination against the Hart Foundation. You had DX kind of interjecting to create more rift. You had DX in the Hart Foundation. You had the Disciples of Apocalypse, Los Boricuas. Wrestling, when built around factions, builds itself stories that can last for months, if not years. New Japan is doing it perfectly with their faction system. So who's to say that we don't get a new Wyatt family out of this? And again, I think Cameron Grimes would be a great fit. And this is a guy who has gone on record on his own show to say that Cameron Grimes would never be a main roster, main act. In the right situation, this being one of them, I think he would play a pretty good supporting role. He'll never be world champion, but he'll be a good supporting role.
I feel like he's proven doubters wrong over the last several years. I have a special connection to him, like him being at my 18th birthday, like he's
that's pretty cool.
He is pretty cool, like a humble flex right there.
Yeah, yeah. I just had Cameron Grimes at my birthday party. No big deal. Yeah. Matter of fact, LA Knight was behind him, like they were just chipping it up, Then Shawn Michaels came, like we were all just shooting the stuff here.
Shooting the breeze,
Yeah, nice humble flex. Oh man. Oh no.
The guns, right?
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned factions and how they're building wrestling nowadays. New Japan does it really well. They've done it well for years and years. NWO, that's how WCW actually had its rise and then kind of had its fall when they sort of missed the point with the NWO. I'm wearing an honorary Oos hoodie right now, which means I am honorarily in the bloodline. I'm an honorary Oos now, along with Sami Zayn. Well, Sami Zayn's best friend, Kevin Owens, is wrestling Roman Reigns. I believe this is the trilogy of their Royal Rumble matches, and I'm pretty sure Roman's won all of them. I might be wrong. Kevin might have won the first one if they competed when Kevin was Universal Champion.
It's been a while. I honestly don't remember that far back, but I wouldn't be surprised if Roman was 2-0, but I also wouldn't be surprised 1-1 either.
And now Roman's obviously winning this weekend, right?
You want to talk about being swerved, man? I keep saying that Cody will be the one that takes the title off of Roman. If there's a way to make it that Sami Zayn cost Roman Reigns the Universal Championship to Kevin Owens, it would be the swerve of a lifetime. But it's one of those things that, like, even if Sammy, I've got a feeling we're aiming towards either Sami Zayn and KO at WrestleMania, or everybody's gunning for The Rock and Roman. Like, what if we're heading towards a Sami Zayn Roman at WrestleMania? Like, if Sami Zayn, like, even if he helps Roman beat KO, he wins the Royal Rumble, and now he's got to figure out, like, how does he take that title shot into WrestleMania? Does he? And eventually, I think it turns into somehow KO and Sami as tag team champions. Maybe he wins the Rumble, or he goes to win the Rumble, and the bloodline eliminates him so that he doesn't get the shot. That caused the rift, and then we get KO and Sami versus the Usos at WrestleMania, and that's how you get the titles off the Usos. So who knows, man? But yeah, I don't see Roman. If you want to look at it logistically, I don't think Roman loses just yet. He's going to lose at WrestleMania, and it's going to be a big deal.
And that could be big. I don't know if he loses to The Rock. If that matchup happens, obviously I think Roman would go over on The Rock. But if it's somebody like a Sami Zayn or a Cody Rhodes, at least taking the WWE title off of him, I still feel like he needs 1,000 days as Universal Champion. But who knows? Because when we come back, it is time to talk about the main reason of the weekend, the Royal Rumble matches. One woman, one man will submit their ticket to WrestleMania, and Bully Ryan and I are going to talk about who that is coming back after the break. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Davis, along with the host of Tapouts and Touchdowns, Ryan Frick, a.k.a. Bully Rye. We're taking over your Wednesdays on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. You may be listening to us on Tuesday right now on YouTube, or you may be listening to us Wednesday as part of the Wrestling Wednesday lineup brought to you by Tobacco Road Sports Radio. And now it is time for your main events, pretty much your co-main events. They won't put them back to back on the show, but it's really why we watch the Royal Rumble, is to find out who is going to WrestleMania. We'll start with the Women's Royal Rumble match. You started to tip your hand at who is going to win. Who is your favorite, and what title do they challenge for?
It's going to be Rhea Ripley, and she's going to challenge for the Raw Women's Championship. It's going to be Rhea versus Bianca for the Raw Women's Championship. There's been a rumor that this is supposed to be the projected match for quite some time. You're watching Rhea Ripley beat up a bunch of dudes. She body slammed. Was it Gallows?
I was there at the live Charlotte
yeah.
showing.
So she just pinned Akira Tozawa. Now, that's not really saying much because Tozawa has basically been jobbed out to just about anybody and everybody you can think of. But they're building Rhea to be this unstoppable force. Bianca has already been this unstoppable force for the last 2 to 3 years. It's going to be Rhea Ripley winning the Royal Rumble and taking on Bianca Belair at WrestleMania.
Now, that's really interesting. I've heard maybe Rhea Ripley wins and then goes to SmackDown and challenges Charlotte. I feel like we're going to just get Charlotte and Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania this year.
It's either going to be that, or it's going to be I could also see like Ronda and why can't I say her name? Shayna Baszler competing for the tag team championships at WrestleMania. I think it's going to wind up being Charlotte and Bayley for the SmackDown Women's Championship. I don't know how it happens, but you've had Charlotte and Becky in a match at WrestleMania. You've had, I believe, Becky and Sasha Banks, who's no longer here. I got a feeling you're going to get another 4 horsewomen match, and you're going to get Charlotte and Bayley at WrestleMania.
Now, that's something that you could do. Rhea Ripley's already on Raw. She could find a way to the path of challenging Bianca Belair. Bayley's on Raw right now. If she won the Royal Rumble and chose Charlotte, the queen, the standard, kind of a jealous undertone of like Charlotte always gets these opportunities, and Damage Control came back to take control no matter what they had to do. And Bayley's like, I'm challenging Charlotte, and I'm
Oh yeah.
challenging for the throne.
I mean, listen, it's possible and it makes sense, but you know, I know we're talking Triple H, not Vince, but not everything that ever makes sense has happened in WWE. So it'll be fun to see what happens. But I still think that I've got this one right.
Especially when Vince McMahon may be back. He's not in charge of creative. He might have a little whisper in an ear.
Imagine this. Imagine the Royal Rumble
No.
happens. Imagine everything takes place as Triple H wants it. And right before WrestleMania, Vince decides I'm taking over and just takes a big dump on everything. It just changes all the plans for WrestleMania. Can you imagine the uproar? I mean, I would sell my tickets to WrestleMania if that happened. Like, just it would be hilariously ironic that if that was the way that it played out.
Last week on the podcast, I brought up that very thing. It's like, and Vince McMahon would do it. Vince is notorious for just ripping up a script. You know, we haven't had, this is why I'm so excited for this year's WrestleMania. We haven't had a WrestleMania card filled out until like 2 weeks before Mania. Like, there's been so many years recently where it's like the week before, and you're like, there's matches still being added and thrown together. And it's like, we don't do that for your biggest show of the year. And Vince McMahon would do it. Vince McMahon would completely just forget the last 8-9 months of programming at the time just to, I don't know, call Goldberg and see if he could challenge Roman Reigns or something. The Battle of the Spears.
They've had it, and it did not end well. So take that for what it's worth.
Have Brock Lesnar go up against Cody Rhodes and take him to Suplex City.
We really need. Don't wish that evil on me, Michael. Don't wish Brock Lesnar back on my WWE TVs, man.
Hey,
Don't
you are
do
wearing
it.
a Suplex City shirt.
I mean, this is the Suplex City that I rock, right? Like this is the Facebook group that I started off in. I helped build, but it's not the same Suplex City as Brock Lesnar, man. Like let's let Suplex City stay in Minneapolis or wherever he's living now, and leave it alone. Don't you ever wish Brock Lesnar on my WWE TV ever again.
Well, who knows? He might show up in the men's Royal Rumble match. We kind of talked about this a little earlier. Maybe Cody Rhodes. Well, Cody Rhodes is definitely competing, whether they should have announced it or not. Maybe The Rock shows up, but with all this stuff swarming around, who's your gut instinct to win the Royal Rumble, and how does it happen? It's always fun to think of like the last four.
Yeah, listen, that's good. So I also think we get Edge returning in the Royal Rumble here.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him in a minute. We're probably more than likely gonna see Edge and his wife against. Well, no, because then Rhea Ripley's challenging for the title, and that's not gonna work. I don't know. It's hard to say how it happens. I think Cody Rhodes wins it, right? If I had to guess on a Final Four, I would go Cody. And this is going to sound weird, maybe a Baron Corbin because they joked that they didn't have anything for him, and all of a sudden now he's in the Final Four. Maybe a Sami Zayn in the Final Four. I could also see like why can't I say his name all of a sudden? The brothers of Solo Sikoa. I can see him somewhere at the Final Four. I also, again, there's so many possibilities. I could also see Seth Rollins in the Final Four. I think more than likely we're going to get Rollins and Rhodes facing off, maybe in the final two. And it's one of those things like Rollins can't get past Cody Rhodes. He was like 0-2 or 0-3 against him, or was he 2-1? It doesn't matter. That was 0-3. So now Cody's the one that eliminates him from the Royal Rumble and goes on to win. So, yeah, listen, I like Cody to win it. I can't imagine anybody else unless maybe The Rock comes back. I also don't think The Rock needs to fight Roman Reigns for the title. But all signs point to Cody Rhodes winning the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Everything looks lined up for Cody Rhodes to win it, but this would be a perfect time for a swerve. You know, something like Sami Zayn or Seth Rollins. I love the Seth Rollins idea.
To let him go down to Cody and be like that. And then at some point, maybe Cody doesn't knock off Roman, and maybe Seth Rollins cost Cody the title, and they continue that rivalry from last year. I don't know. They've somehow like very gradually switched over Seth Rollins to be a babyface, and I hate it because Seth Rollins personally is another guy that I'm not a fan of. But you can't deny his work in the ring and on the mic. But yeah, I mean, like, I think Sami Zayn would be a fun person to win the Rumble. I mean, you got a guy like Jonah or Bronson Reed, as he's known in WWE. It'd be, again, he came back as the Miz's lackey, but if you've never seen Bronson Reed work, he is a combination of Yokozuna, Vader, and Bam Bam Bigelow wrapped into one
Yes.
package. Just he's such a talented guy. So I don't think you get the swerve and have him win it, but you could have him. He's a big, powerful dude. It would make sense for him to be towards the end. Braun Strowman is another guy that you got to think about being the guy he is. Gunther is another guy you got to wonder about. Like, can you imagine Gunther taking on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania? So, one of the things about the Royal Rumble is when you're anticipating a guy winning, like the one year that everybody wanted Daniel Bryan to win, and Rey
In
Mysterio came out at
2014.
30, and Rey Mysterio was the first time in his career he was universally booed by an entire audience, and it wasn't his fault. But you had Alberto Del Rio win it one year.
The
I don't
40
think
man.
Yeah, I don't think you let Edge win it again. Obviously, AJ Styles being hurt takes him out of the picture. So, yeah, I think ultimately, when you think about it, again, nobody makes sense other than Cody Rhodes. But that's the beauty of the Royal Rumble, is like not knowing makes it even more special when somebody you don't expect to win wins.
And what also makes it special is not knowing who's going to show up. And we got to get out of here. But Ryan, I want to ask you, is there some returns you think? And something to note of interest. Matt Cardona recently filed for the trademark of Zack Ryder last week. So could that be a way of
No.
either A, he's using the name in Impact, or B, he's coming back?
Yeah, I think he wants to take the name back and use an Impact because he's teaming back up with Kurt Hawkins. I couldn't tell you his name in Impact, but I saw a card for next week's Impact show, and they're called I can't remember what they're called now, but they're teaming up again in Impact. I don't think we see him back in WWE. But then again, Mickey James is a contracted wrestler, was in the Royal Rumble last year when she was with Impact. So it's one of those things you never know. It'd be interesting to see if you had Carl Anderson show up at Wrestle Kingdom and lose the Never Openweight Championship to Tama Tonga. So it would be intriguing to see if there was some sort of semi relationship working with New Japan, where maybe you get like a Jay White or a maybe a Tama Tonga in the Royal
I was
Rumble.
thinking, Tama Tonga come out and eliminate Carl Anderson?
Oh yeah, that'd be kind of funny. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, again, it's always fun to speculate, but WWE is not known for working with a lot of other companies, and being the fact that the first WWE contracted wrestler to wrestle in the Tokyo Dome or at a New Japan show was Carl Anderson. It'd be funny. It'd be fun to see who they could get from New Japan to like kind of swerve the crowd, whether it's Jay White. Because again, if you haven't been following, Jay White's contract is supposedly running out with New Japan, and WWE is a favorite to get him. So Jay White showing up at the Royal Rumble could be a pretty big deal. So yeah, I couldn't pinpoint one person that would make a return outside of Edge, because nobody's really talking about him. Everybody's talking about Cody. I think Edge makes his return at the Royal Rumble. He doesn't win it, hopefully. But that's the only guy that I pegged that they're not talking about right now is Edge coming back.
I'm thinking when it comes to returns, I've thought of some ruthless aggression era kind of guys. The one quality you possess. I'm thinking Carlito, Chris Masters, both of them really good shape. Not a lot of people talk about. They could come back at like the 1 to 10 range, be in there for 10 minutes, and then get dumped out by somebody you're trying to build up like Gunther.
Carlito is another missed opportunity for me, because you had
Oh.
Primo and Epico in 5 different, it seems like 5 different gimmicks when they were in WWE. They were Los Matadores. Before that, they were the Colognes. After that, they were somebody else. I don't remember who they were. But for whatever reason, they didn't mesh with Carlito as far as a corporate standpoint goes. But that's a perfect, you talk about the bloodline now. Carlito, Primo, and Epico were the quintessential family faction that you could have put together, and he never did. So, wishful thinking. I'd love to see the Colognes maybe make their way to NXT at some point before they make their way to the main card. But I don't see Carlito coming. He's already come back for a Rumble appearance. Chris Masters might be okay. You got to think there's a lot of guys in NWA that we're not talking about either. And of course, I can't say his name. Nick Aldis is supposed to be having an outs with the NWA. Yeah, again, you don't want to speculate with people that are under contract with other companies, but yeah, it's always fun to fantasy book it. Like, what if you get Jay White? What if you got Okada, Kazuchika Okada, to show up at the Royal Rumble, and then you let him let him get dumped by, like, I don't know. I was going to say Rich Swann, but that's Impact. Shelton Benjamin, or why can't I say the guy that comes out with him? Cedric Alexander. Okada. Like, I don't think New Japan would allow that sort of thing to happen, but it's fun to think about the fact that what if Okada, what if Jay White shows up and winds up in the final four of the Royal Rumble on his first night in the company?
That'd be so crazy.
Yeah.
Okada and Nakamura face off in the Royal Rumble.
That's another guy. Nakamura could probably come back because we haven't been talking about Nakamura. What about Rick Boogs? Boogs has been out since last WrestleMania. What if Nakamura gets the number one Rumble pick, and you hear Rick Boogs come out with his guitar? My name's Rick Boogs. Can you imagine the pop that he gets? The only thing I'm hoping for now that college football season is over is that they have Pat McAfee come and call the Royal Rumble.
Please, Pat McAfee needs to be there. Please, I miss his excitement.
You can't have a Big Four premium live event without having a guy with the energy of Pat McAfee calling the show. And I'm not sure if he's still under contract with WWE, since he is under contract with ESPN. I don't know how that works, but if you have a Royal Rumble match and you don't have Pat McAfee involved, be it commentary or as a surprise entrant, I don't know what you're doing. I really don't.
Yeah. And who knows? We'll have to watch this weekend. Ryan Frick, we got to get out of here. We got to continue our Wrestling Wednesday card on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. We got to get out on Tuesday night, however you may be watching us, but we'll figure it all out. Everybody, go follow my guy, Ryan Frick, Tapouts and Touchdowns. Go get him that 100 YouTube subscribers. Go give it to me as well. Be generous. It doesn't cost you any money. Just go subscribe. But we will see you guys next week.